was living a lie. In the darkness, I was scared of the light. With no direction, I was running away. Step aside, enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ride.
What we're going to do next is we're going to go back into the circle that we had started this morning. And we're going to pretend like we've already checked out of the circle, because you do have to check out. We're going to have some time elements here. There is always time elements. Everybody in the circle has a time element. We've learned that. And I still haven't figured out how to, do we half check out because one person has to leave, but there's still people in the circle. And I think the better way is you say, I have to go. And everybody knows you didn't just walk out and leave, that you had to go at a certain time. And if we're kind of engrossed in something, they go, oh, yeah, that's right. They told us they had to leave. Rather than, hi, everybody, I'm leaving. I got to be somewhere. So it's this fluid process, actually. And we have had people where the husbands had to leave, and then you're kind of thinking, okay, what do we do? And I still want to do the checkout, but Lori's in the other room doing something. And so we try to do, we've learned, we do some kind of a checkout when the last person is leaving. And that's what we're going to model in our class circle later on. So assume we've done the checkout, and now Peg and Al are coming back for a second session, okay? Usually at the end of the first session, always, there's some agreed action, okay? We just did this last week. There was a lot of tension. She was moving to Costa Rica in a couple of days, and you could just tell she wanted everything in writing, but they had made so much progress, in terms of just their connection and everything. But so we ended up, I learned again the importance of slowing everything down, because we were all tired. It was 5 hours. We were sitting here. Lori, Tom, me, the couple. And, you could tell Tom was like, well, let's just write it down. Everybody's just like, and I'm just like, okay, we've all been here for 5 hours, and what agreed actions do we want to do? And everybody agreed to come back to do another. We were going to do it. She was going to Costa Rica, so we're going to do it. And that just slows everybody down, because you're always going to have an agreement if you're not done. In my head, you're always going to have an agreement. At least the facilitator is going to say, well, I'm willing to be here for another one. That's what I have to offer. So if the facilitator is going to be there, usually everybody will say, well, okay, I'll come. And then we all have to figure out our schedules, and we put that in writing, very, very simple. And sometimes they have things to bring, and we even put in writing that it's going to be on Skype, or who's going to facilitate, who's going to start it. But it's not an elaborate writing. It's just like the one I told you about in the beginning. It's very, very simple. And you want it, what I learned is the simpler and the most particular, the better. Because then everybody knows, okay, I'm going to make the call to do the Skype, or get everybody on WhatsApp, and that it's going to be on a certain day at a certain time. Or it could be, we don't know the time yet, but so-and-so is going to make the call. Lori will handle it and get everybody's schedule, but we're all agreeing to come back. So you have a handout, agreed actions. That's how simple the agreement can be. I just created that handout. We just write them on a piece of paper. And Louise has seen this too. I think she was maybe a little shocked when I just write things out. I'm the attorney, right? But I'm not the attorney in the circle. So I'm scribbling it out, washing it, making sure everybody's reading it. And people are thinking, I'm sure Louisa and other people are thinking, well, what's the big deal? I don't know. She's knowing the process. But even they're probably thinking, why is she making such a big deal about everybody, the time and everything? But that's the learning, right? We want everybody to agree to every single tiny thing. So it's again like watching paint dry, if you're watching it. Okay, so... Can I ask one question? Oh, yes. Any questions? Welcome.
This is probably a little tangential, but once you say we agreed to 50-50, sharing the children, is that it, or does that have to be signed by a judge at the end? That's my question is, you agree here, is that binding then, or can they say, oh, no, I changed my mind, I want to go to court again, or how is that? I just need to know a little bit on that.
That is really a good question. So it's all the DNA of the case. It's all unique. So what the mediator is doing is just reaching an agreement. So for instance, the agreement that they're all going to come back, that simple agreement, do we need that to be court ordered? So it's a consent process. And I've seen even when mediators, when everybody signs and everything else, they say, I'm not doing that. They go to court. I don't want to do that anymore. It's one of the anomalies because as mediators, they say, it's binding if they both sign it, right? And the mediator signs it and it's binding as to the couple. But it depends on the integrity of the couple. And binding, and I explained this before, family is the only realm where when you're getting a divorce or breaking up or dealing with children, your agreements have to be incorporated into a court order subject to contempt. It is the only realm. When you buy a cell phone, all those little provisions, that you agree to don't become court orders. When you lease an apartment, all those little provisions don't become court orders. But in mediation, the tendency is, okay, then we're going to have a court order, right? And we get away from that. So it's up to the attorney if they want to go see one, and we're training the attorneys to look at the agreement and say, and the attorneys representing both of them, which is unusual. They do a dual representation. Lori's been through it. I've been the attorney doing the dual representation. The attorney, we leave it to the attorney, right? Whether they think, we must have a court order ordering this particular thing to happen. Now, if you want a divorce, you need an order to terminate the marriage. So you need to agree to terminate the marriage. We keep it as simple as possible, but you need petitions and things like that. The lawyers in the room will know that, but we keep this petition as simple as possible, and it's one order, right? So it's just a good question. As a mediator, you don't have to worry about that. You just have to worry about getting the agreement as particular as possible. And you don't even have to worry about that because you will see that they're already in agreement. I mean, they're just going, okay, we'll just do this. So you might end up seeing that, right? You just know because they're just going to go do it. Just like that example, Ben Dieterman. Then his issue became money because he made tons more money than her. And so he had 50-50 now, and it's kind of like our little scenario. So any other questions? I guess my answer to questions is you don't have to worry about court orders.
So actually, all they need is a petition for the divorce.
Mm-hmm. Well, all they need is you send them to an attorney, and if they can use any attorney too. They don't have to use one that's trained by us. That's happened where they, if they think they want a court order, but it's not our concern as restorative circle mediators to make sure whatever they sign there, let's make it binding somewhere else. And it's not even our concern that if they break the agreement. That's not us to say, well, why did you break this agreement? It's their life. It's their agreement. So I'm just saying you don't have to be concerned about it. And maybe it's the psychology coming into, as an attorney, I have that like, oh my God, I wonder if they're going to, break this agreement, and maybe we should get a court order. And what if the attorney's going to make us do a court order? Then our whole process is ruined. I mean, I have all those stories in my head, but what happened? They had an agreement. My story about what happened is going to be different than another person's and another person's and another person's. The lawyer wants to talk.
I have to ask a question. Because if we're not going after a court order, which I'm all for, you see people in this circle reach a certain amount of agreement and then depart the circle and then go back into their own individual circles, and that same influence isn't there. Is there a continuing care program of that helps them maintain that agreement? Like, oh, I don't want to, there's that moment where they're going, no, screw this, I'm going to go to a lawyer. With instead they call, or you call, or somebody calls, or Lori calls them and goes, hey, you want to sit down? How does that work?
There is a continuing care program, but we're not continuing. The continuing care is just that we're going to help you. Like I tell people, my job is to not have a job, that you guys facilitate your own communication. Like that I'm not going to be in your house unless you want me there because you need help. Saying, what did you hear him say? Is that it? They're going to get it on their own. And we do say to almost everybody, we say, we're going to be here for you. Like if you ever need any support, we're here. And it might not even, the advocate could be the supporter. I've gotten calls 5 years later, One more recently, they just did a court order because they were the mediator. I wasn't the mediator. I think I was the referral. I referred to Family Innocence, and they called up, and basically they didn't get their divorce yet because they didn't have the money for it. I didn't know the circumstance, but he called and he goes, I thought we already had child support. I've been paying child support. We've been doing our custody, and we're not divorced, but we have it all agreed upon, and I thought that's what we did. And what happened was he got some papers from court, right? So then, of course, I'm going, okay, I don't know anything about this. So we have an attorney, the attorney took his call, and then they did have an agreement. Something like, I think he had more custody of the kid, and he was worried he was going to have to pay more, even though but he was paying, he was agreeing, but court got involved somehow, and I think it's because she lost her job and maybe went to the courts. And so now the courts are suing him for child support. So that was like an attorney has to be involved, and all that attorney did was meet with them. Oh, this is your agreement, and kind of get it through the courts. So the courts were out of their hair, and they got a divorce, but they had been separated for years. So I think that's how that worked out. But again, I'm not like monitoring it, making sure it happened that way. I just know I got that call, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this? What is this? Did one of our mediators, and I gave him because people do think, oh, it's agreed to, I don't need a court order, kind of a thing. So there's always that education, because everybody's in a different place in their education. But ultimately, our whole group, including me, got them the support they needed 5 years later to see that their agreement was the way the courts wanted it, or what have you.
Can I ask one other question?
Then I'll pass it to Tom. How long do you keep records on all these, and do you have to keep them for 7 years, or I'm just questioning that because you're talking about being anonymous and not sharing the information. Do you keep records? That's all.
Yes and no. It's developed that way. I mean, it started off that the mediator would just go mediate. The checks wouldn't be made out to Family Innocence. Some of them would, and then we'd pay the mediator. Sometimes the mediator would just get paid and then pay us the $25. So it was just, it's kind of interesting that way, because again, as a lawyer, it's like I have to document everything, but just as an organization, we know, like we have them, we keep track of who calls. We have a place to put the calls. But the mediator it's their own, what they want to keep track of. So we keep track of it. It's just like we don't. Yeah, we keep the records, but we mostly let them keep their own records because it's their family, right? So it's very interesting, and that's a great question because I struggled with letting that go too, right? Because you're a psychologist, I'm a lawyer, and you're like, oh, we got to keep records, in case they come back and say, but because it's their agreement, they already know what it is, or they have it in writing, or it's up to them to keep their records. It's a hard question to answer, and so we'll support you. Like we'll be what do you call it, the permanent care or something of all of our people that are doing this, and that's the beauty of I guess the beauty of me, because and going to be the beauty of Brian is if you have a question that needs kind of is this a legal problem? Do we have to go to court for this? I'll be able to answer it in the particular instance that comes up.
And then I'd like to just touch on, again, whether it's the follow-up. The beauty of this process is the dialogue. So as we're going through the steps, they go through this painful dialogue, so they're understanding it, so they don't really have to revert back and say that they're going to back out of their agreement that they came to, because as you see, the process can take a long time. So the hiccups or the real difficult part is what they're really spending a lot of time dialoguing through, and then they fully understand, because we keep saying, is that it? Is there more? So they don't look back at the process later and say, well, I don't really understand. I'm not going to go through that. I want to go to court, or, so their follow-up is just reconnecting back to their dialogue when we started it originally. They really work through their most difficult things. So most of the time, their own follow-up, it's not something that they're going to revert back and say, no, I don't agree to it anymore. They spend a lot of time painfully going through it in the process. But we are always here to follow up for their needs. So I hope that helps.
Any other questions? So on that, yes, we're just teaching them really, literally, the dialogue process, and that they're not hearing each other. See, it's what you don't know, what you don't know. So once that lights up, we try to say, you're having agreements all the time about your kids. We're doing one right now, and right off the bat, they were going to do the week on, week off, so we did it real simple, and they're making agreements all the time about your kids. You don't need every single thing in writing. We're taking care of them, but we're not taking care of them. It's so empowering. And if they're coming in thinking, like I said at the beginning, are you going to get me my kids back? Are you going to get me my child support? With the lawyer, you're like, ugh. Can we say yes with an honest face? We can say we are going to support that process of the two of you making the decision. And it's a real situation. It's not, and it's very hard when you're in, like, the court's like a machine, right? And even sitting in my office for 3 hours, we could make it like a machine, like, oh, gotta go. It's hard to be in that setting and then not make anything happen, but everything's happening at the same time. So, and when you say keep track of, I remember my dad, he's out east, and we were at a wedding. I'll just try to be really quick about this. And he's all, and my sister just stormed off, and Michelle's going, he's going, follow her, do your circle thing, right? So, yeah, so you can implement it in this is what I want it to be like. I just love, like I said last week, and people, can I have my pre-circle today? Oh, when are you going to do the pre-circle? Like it's going to be our culture, just, we do, let's go over there and have our little talk. But anyway, and so I followed her to the hotel room, and she's, Dad, and then he came in, and I did the what did you hear? him say, my dad didn't ever know this existed. What did you hear? He just said, do your circle thing. And then he was saying things like, you're my favorite daughter, to my sister. And I'm like, what, he always does that. I'm, wait a minute, but I'm just letting it happen because I'm hearing that I'm his favorite, right? I'm hearing something different. And I learned so much about my dad. Oh my God. I don't even remember what the thing, but that was maybe 4 years ago. It was Luke's graduation. Oh no, it was Abby's wedding. How long? So 3 years ago, and just the last time I was home, he said he's seen us do our work with other like extended family, and he's going, remember when you did that with me and Irene? And I said, oh yeah. He's gone. I said, has anything come up about that? No, nothing's come up. And that was like maybe a half an hour. So you can impact with what you're doing just by supporting the conversation.
You didn't ask him who his favorite daughter is?
Yeah, I know. There was a lot of that because I'm trying to be neutral. I'm like hearing, and you're my favorite. And I'm thinking, what about me? But it's not about, hey dad, what about me? It's about them talking. And it was, my dad kept talking and talking and talking and talking and talking, and Irene was, what did you hear him say? And I'm hearing him say da 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 da. They did it really well, so they got their rhythm. So now they've been talking ever since, and it works out pretty well. So at the end of the circle, the first day, you do collect a fee. Everybody knows what that is, and we say how many hours have we been here, and then they usually share it, and it's kind of fun to watch them share it because they end up like, well, I'll just pay this, and oh, I paid you this, and they don't just like split it down the middle. Almost every time it's like, well, you owe me this, so I'll pay this, and so then we get all discombobulated in our and then we give them a receipt from the organization. And then this is like business stuff, and you'll learn the business of it. I just want you to know it, because when you graduate, Lori, like I said, is going to have a little business where you'll know there'll be a form when you want to get paid, things like that. We try to pay you right away, right when the check's clear, things like that. So this is your own little business, basically, with a lot of support from us, because we need the help. And so then you've done that, and then you've done an agreed action where they're coming back. So now we're setting the stage for the return, and this is maybe their, would we say, second session? We've probably spent 3 hours. Typically, it's 3 hours that we spend. And like I said, if it's less than an hour, they pay for the hour. That's the only thing because there's so much preparation that goes into it. So Al and I are going to go back out, and then they're going to prepare for us. Any questions? What did you hear me say, by the way? What did you hear me say? Is that it? And you have the exact wordings that you should probably use like 100 times before you, like I gave Lori, I said, here's what you're going to say when the agreed actions comes around. But it's going to be just this fluid process where you'll get your own rhythm. But what I say to myself with that, what did you hear me say, so it doesn't feel like paint drying, is do it 100 times. Say, like, count it. What did you hear me say? Is that it? What did you, like, make yourself. Then you'll be counting, and then it'll just be like, oh, okay. You don't want to do it 5 times and be done. And if you noticed, I've done I've been doing these a while, and I love when they say, is that it? Yeah. And then, is there more? No. And then you think, oh my God, this is done. So that's what we started the technique of, what did you hear him say that time? He said that he was done. Is that it? Yes. Is there more? No. What did you hear him say that time? I heard him say he was done. Is that it? Da 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 da. And then they invariably, he goes, well, I have more to say, but What did you hear him say that time? I have more to say, but is that it? Yeah. Is there more? Yeah. And then they start to get the rhythm and then you'll have people that don't say anything and then they complain. Not complain, but they go, well, I didn't get to say last time that, and it's like, well, say it now. Everybody is so unique and different. So. You know the girl.
Bingo.
I didn't really like Sandy anyway.
Our problem really isn't about Kelly, it's about her.
I didn't hear a word he said.
You want me to tell Sandy that you're sorry.
Well, are you going to?
That bike is sexy. Growing up, I was living a lie. In the darkness, I was scared of the light. With no direction, I was running away. I tried to cover that I'm losing my mind. Now it's over. I wonder, yeah. A new beginning, it's a new way of life. Another chapter, why not give it a try? This hopeful journey needs an open mind to discover the treasure inside. Now I'm sober. The clouds are running away. I can see the colors every day. I walked away from the fire, and now I'm living in grace. You never know the world until you open your eyes. Never see the truth until you look past the lies. Mother Nature is waiting for you to arrive. Step outside, step outside, enjoy the ride. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do, do, do. La, 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 la. Enjoy the ride.
So Michelle is going to leave us with the Family Innocence theme song. We know it's going to be catching on everywhere. So take it away, Michelle.
And I won't have my husband Tom sing with me this time.
You guys are all blessed.
Okay. Camera. Start spreading the bird, beginning today. We want to be no part of it, the family court. The bird is the word. It's flying away to make a brand new start of it. No family court. We want to wake up in a household where we can sleep instead of fearing a judge ready to peep. These family court blows are melting away. We will get to the heart of it with no delay. If we can do it here, we'll do it. Everywhere, no family court, no family court. One more line. If it is not a crime, we are not doing time in family